everybody, to the Menrva Lounge. I'm Kelly Resendez, president of Menrva, and Dr. Betty's in the background today, but I'm going to be kind of taking this one a little bit solo. So, what I'm going to share with you is just kind of a concept about how we really get to what I would consider unstoppable living, where we feel just powerful and joyful and really just I would say Just Right, which is the name of our new book that's coming out soon as well. But I want to tell you a little bit about the truth about women. This is from a statistical standpoint, and some of it will break your heart a little bit. Women are 32% more likely to experience extreme work burnout compared to men, which is astronomical when we really think about like why the leadership numbers might be so pathetic. This is a big one. If women feel burnt out, they certainly are not going to be applying for that promotion or starting a new company. Women are 2 times more likely to experience imposter syndrome compared to men. So that means we're really questioning our value. We're questioning our worth as well, which we really want to get away from. 45% of female entrepreneurs doubt their abilities regularly. So that means we're kind of in our own heads a little bit. 66% of women entrepreneurs report chronic stress. Maybe that's a new word. Chronic stress is what we really feel. When we think about why that matters in a health conversation, which is what Menrva is that it's a women's health organization. We know that chronic stress is going to disrupt every system in your body, from the way that you metabolize hormones to how you feel. So it's important that we really address that. And women entrepreneurs earn 82 cents for every dollar earned by their male counterparts, which, why does that matter? I think that we all believe that everyone should be treated equally, but if a woman doesn't feel in her power, she may not be able to go ahead and do that. And so the reason why this conversation is important is we believe it's up to us. Yes, could we blame some external, barriers that exist in the world? But we really believe that women stepping into their power is going to be the solution for a lot of these challenges. When we look at, the numbers, only 10% of Fortune 500 companies are run by women. Only 2.5% of venture capital goes to women. And so we believe the baseline of getting through this issue is getting our physical well-being at its peak, where we feel fantastic and we really know that we are capable of doing anything that we really set our hearts out to. And so, how do we get there? The way in which I put this out is I kind of call it the frequency of abundance. And it's actually one of my books coming out this year, but it contains quite a few pieces. So the first one is, what are the core beliefs that we take along this journey with us? Like, how are we filtering, the external world and creating our life experience? That's all informed by our belief system. The next part is we need to really ignite our vision or desire. We need to have a crystal clear idea of what we want our life experience to look like. I know when I wake up in the morning, I want to feel fantastic. I want to bounce out of bed. I want to feel ready to go regardless of what comes at me. So I need to make sure that my resiliency is there. I know, the things that I want to do, like how do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to spend it with? What are some of the outcomes that I really want to create in my life? And part of this journey at Menrva is a part of my vision. My purpose is to help women increase joy and reduce suffering. And I know getting physically optimized is a big piece of that journey. The next part is we need to also have the discipline that is going to help us achieve this. So we've got to ensure that we're really aligned. How do we take care of ourselves? What are the things that we do day in and day out to ensure that we really are able to create that vision for ourselves? And the last piece is our environment. That's internal and external. Like, how is our internal environment supporting our energy level? And that's a big part of what this hormone journey that we take women on is about, is we've got to make sure that we feel at our best. We also need to ensure that the environment around us is supportive. Women supporting women is such a big piece of this mission. We need to ensure that we aren't surrounded with toxicity. We also need to know how to work with our male counterparts. I hear women often complain about what's going on in that world. And I also look at it as saying this is part of our journey is in learning how to collaborate with men so that we can really make a bigger impact in the world. So what are the core beliefs that I believe in order to really get to this next level of feeling right include? So number one, we are the creator of our own reality, our own success, and unfortunately, our own misery a lot of times. This is an energy job, so we've got to ensure that we own it, that we take responsibility. We could choose to be a victim of our childhood, our circumstances, or we can rise above it and really be able to create this next level of feeling just right. Other aspect is that life really happens for you. Some of you may have heard this before in, Tony Robbins, Byron Katie, so many other greats that are out there, but it goes back to, the Bible, the book of Buddha, that we really experience the things that we need in order to grow. And so when we see things as being for us, we feel less like a victim. And so if we've had some health challenges on our journey, we have to look at what is the silver lining in that? Are there good things that have actually come as a result of it? The next aspect is we need to believe in infinite possibilities. So again, no matter where we are, that we're able to create this vision for ourselves that we're going to make a big impact, or maybe we're going to reconnect with our kids or other loved ones that maybe we just didn't believe was possible. And so we want to make sure that we're just open to this idea again that we can create when we have a vision. We also want to see challenges as an opportunity for growth. And so when we experience challenges, no matter what they are, when we look at it and say, what's good about this? So we're going to be able to learn. And then this belief that our energy is what creates our environment. I can tell you for myself, just knowing that I can attract in everything that I need, whether it's what we need at Menrva or personally. I'm to the point now that often if I think about someone, which happened this weekend, I was celebrating my daughter's graduation and I was surprised one of my friends hadn't reached out to me. I hadn't talked to in a bit, and I actually said it out loud. And sure enough, they called last night, and it was like, wow, I did that. Like the minute I put energy out into the world, I normally end up getting it back. And so the next aspect is really just getting into figuring out what our vision is. Now, our vision is different than what we want to achieve. So I want you to think about your vision is how do you really want to feel in your life when you look at your health and you start to look at, man, if I just focus more on how I want to feel, the physical aspect normally follows. So, like other people raised in my generation, we were very obsessed with body image and the self-esteem created from body image. And I got caught up in that until I realized, man, this is more about how I feel when I wake up, when I'm working all day. And the minute I started to prioritize, like I want to feel radiant, I want to feel energized, the physical well-being ended up following from that. So you want to go through every area of your life and just make a decision. How do I really want to feel, in my relationships, about myself personally? One of my goals for women over time is that we all walk by a mirror and we're in awe of ourselves. Like, how often are we really in awe of everything that we've created and everything we've done? We do a tremendous job looking at the things that aren't right, looking at that wrinkle in the mirror, or maybe something that we said that we weren't happy about, or, I embarrassed my daughter a little bit on Friday. And of course, you start to beat yourself up over that. And yet, we have this innate ability to walk ourselves through this and just live unapologetically. I always set the intention that I'm going to keep trying to get better and better and better, but I'm not going to beat myself up for the choices that I made yesterday. And so we really want to have this vision, like, how do I want to contribute? How do I want to feel about my finances? Make a decision and then set some actionable goals. If you don't write down your goals today, especially around your health, it is very difficult for our brain to be able to do what we need it to. It is a very, very old technology. So when you think about old technology, if you remember back to that first computer, we had to give it such basic commands in order to get it to do something, where today, now we have AI agents that are working on our behalf, and they already are intuitive about knowing what needs to be done. That's not the way that our brain works. So we want to make sure that we write down our actionable goals. For myself, some of those goals around this are going to be my protein. I write it down. I need to eat 100 grams of protein a day. My fiber, my hydration, just simple things that I know, man, if I get 8 hours of sleep and I have my bedtime at 9:30, I'm going to feel so much better the next day, and that's going to allow me to be able to get there. And so that is a really important piece of just igniting this desire in our life, is to really create some disciplines as well. And so that's the second pillar, which is, how do I really just ensure that I'm doing the things every single day? So I'm going to give you some daily disciplines that have really helped me feel just right in my life. So the first one is having morning and evening rituals. They're non-negotiable. For myself, I'm very faith-based, so I read the Bible 365 days out of the year. It is non-negotiable. It's the first thing that I do when I wake up. And I make sure that I look at my goals. I'm telling my brain how I want it to feel. I'm reviewing my affirmations. I'm doing gratitude. Every day, I try to take time for gratitude and just remember things that have happened recently, good and bad, and just found the silver lining in it. I also journal every single day. And some other daily disciplines that are going to help you with these things that I talked about earlier, the overwhelm, the imposter syndrome, other things, are just having a plan to manage overthinking. It's one of those that I have a pattern disrupt that I just know right away, like, oh, it's interesting. You're overthinking this. We need to stop, take a break, take a walk, listen to a song, call a friend, do something different, just so that I don't fall victim to that overthinking, which leads to the stress. We also want to eliminate guilt. And I mean eliminate it. There is no room in our lives for guilt. We all make mistakes. If we're shooting for perfection, and if you don't know the difference between men and women, men don't shoot for perfection extrinsically like we do as women. We are constantly adjusting to try to be perfect for the external world. Men aren't the same. And so we have a lot of guilt when we're not perfect. And we want to take away from that. And we just want to say, like, okay, again, I want to get a little bit better every single day. We also want to reduce stress. So when we start to see our nervous system as a system, right? It's a system. We can reboot it. We just need to teach it. So many people experience things in life that are not dangerous, but your nervous system doesn't know the difference, because maybe you had a situation as a young child where you faced rejection, failure, something happened, and now all of a sudden you're walking around and a tough conversation leads to a very stressful situation. And just having the awareness that we have a lot more power over reducing stress. Now, I'm of the opinion, and most people don't like me when I say this, that stress is optional. With that being said, I still get a little bit of it sometimes when maybe something's taking too long, or we've got a contract that is in negotiation and I'm feeling it in my body. I've got to know how to walk myself through that so that I can calm myself down and I don't get the physical aspect of what stress does to me, because we know it's going to spike our cortisol. We know it's going to, cause us to not feel as great if we were to go ahead and reduce it. And then the last piece of daily disciplines is learning how to let go. And what this means is that as women, we have a lot of attachment. right? The way that things should be, timing, other aspects of our life, just we have an idea of what we want things to look like. And part of this, path to joy is surrendering, just constantly just being in that place of I'm just going to let go. Everything's always working out okay for me. I probably have to say that 10 times a day. It's all going to work out in divine timing, but these are daily disciplines that have really allowed me to be able to navigate my life experience a little bit more. Couple other disciplines that have really helped me, I kind of call it clearing the internal static, is just looking at like, where are my limiting beliefs? Where do I have some blocks, childhood programming and fears? I wish I had all day to go through this. I'll probably cover this in the future, but just knowing that, again, our brain is just a protection technology. And a lot of the stuff that's blocked in our subconscious mind is changing our life experience. So I want to be disciplined about maybe watching videos, reading books, learning things that are going to allow me to, navigate that a little bit more. And so the last pillar, and what I again call the frequency of abundance, is to elevate our environment. So how do we do that? Number one, I kind of call it curating our energy ecosystem. So what is this internal ecosystem that we have? We've got our sleep, super important. If somebody said what's, the number one priority when it comes to your physical and emotional well-being, beyond, this is like before exercise, before nutrition, before hydration, sleep is my number one priority. My mom got diagnosed with dementia at age 57. That brought me to my knees in 2002 and really put me on this path. I wouldn't be here today if that wouldn't have happened. So I found gratitude in it, but I also found clues. A few things. Number one, my mom was on synthetic hormones for way too long, which were eventually taken off the market. Number two, my mom never slept. She did not have deep sleep, which is when our organs repair themselves. So I don't know the impact that it made on her brain, but I can tell you it probably wasn't good. And so I'm an 8 hour a night sleeper. I look at my schedule the next day and make a decision like I've got to make sure that my bedtime is this, and I'm able to just navigate my day in that way. So beyond sleep, food, of course, we want to eat a rainbow of colors. It's healthy for our gut where our immune system exists, and ensure that I'm not eating anything that is processed or really not. I don't even eat foods that aren't organic because I want to make sure that I don't have any disruptors that are coming into my body. Hydration is the next one. And I will tell you, I suck at hydration. This is actually on my goals. I have to remind myself every day that I've got to drink my water. I've got to make sure that I get my fiber in. I've got to make sure I get my creatine in, the things that I know that are really going to benefit me. And then we also want to look at movement. And when we look at movement based off of every age group, we might do something just a little bit different. But I can tell you for myself, just getting out in nature, I was able to walk the beach in Oregon this weekend with my daughter, and holy moly, like just that experience just calms me in a way. And so I want to make sure that I get enough movement in every day. And then of course we need to balance our hormones and our physical health. And that's what Menrva really brings to the table, is this idea that until we're hormonally optimized, we are not going to feel at our best. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my story because it's important to everyone listening, is that, I got into functional medicine before I probably started perimenopause. So I was able to catch it right away. I knew all of the symptoms. And then once I went through menopause, I knew exactly the moment that I hit the cliff. I had heart palpitations while I was on vacation and immediately came back and got on it. Now, that's not the journey that most people make. I take one of my friends, I'm going to just call her by a different name just to preserve her integrity. But let's just say Michelle started having major heart palpitations and went to the ER. They eventually sent her home 8 hours later, couldn't find anything. Same thing happened again. A week later, went to the ER. She ended up at a cardiologist office and went through all of the tests. until eventually she ended up having coffee with somebody that asked her, like, have you had your estrogen levels checked? And she was like, no. And they're like, that's a very common symptom. Now, the ER didn't tell her, two visits. The cardiologist didn't tell her. It took a friend to tell her. And I'm grateful that I didn't go through that same experience because I would have been in a third world country going to the ER, but I knew exactly what was happening in my body. And that's part of why Menrva exists, is so that we can educate women on this aspect of estrogen reduction. What happens when we no longer have estrogen in our body? And so the biggest thing that we want to do here is really just make informed choices. We believe that every woman deserves an informed choice about HRT. Well, when you look at this, we didn't really have that right before. We were being, I would say, led to believe the fear of breast cancer, which is not even the leading cause of death in women, was too risky for us to look at this. And so now we want to make sure that everybody has this opportunity. And when we look at, the amount of menopause education that the majority of the doctors that we see, an OBGYN might be well versed on labor and delivery, but not on what happens in our bodies a little bit later on. And so we really want to make sure that everyone's working with trained functional or hormone medicine doctors just to ensure that they are receiving the best. So what do we want to avoid? We definitely want to avoid the oral synthetic hormones that are really out on the market today. And we recommend, more topical things as well. And this is all about optimization. This is about feeling just right, and this takes time. And that's why our medical professionals are really trained in titration and ensuring that we're really looking at all of the things, because not only is using hormone therapy beneficial to feeling just right, it also is going to protect our body. So it's going to improve our bone density. It's going to protect against osteoporosis. It's going to improve our quality and duration of life. It's going to also reduce some of the risks of other diseases like Alzheimer's and other things. And so we want to make sure that at Menrva that we're helping people protect their hormones, their gut, and their thyroid. So again, they can feel just right. And so the last piece of really just this environment is to really up level our environment, which means we believe in the power of proximity. Who you surround yourself with, I kind of call it magnetism. Dr. Betty got magnetized into my world, and now we're completely interconnected in so many different ways. And we're on this path together to revolutionize women's healthcare. And that didn't happen by chance. We both invested in a women's mastermind where we met, and we see the value of connecting. One of the things that we do is we really ask for help easily. A lot of women struggle asking for help, and it's a big part of this journey that we really want. And another aspect of up-leveling this environment is setting really good boundaries for our time and our energy as well. So we just want to be thoughtful about that. And then the last thing that I would say is that when we get to this next level of abundance and we feel at our best, part of the DNA of women is to share it with other people, to be a teacher, to be able to, contribute to the world in a greater level. When you look at the amount of charitable donations that are made or time invested, typically it's women in their 50s and 60s are doing the most. And that's just because we believe this cycle of life is something that we want to contribute to. So again, final thoughts. Abundance and joy is an inside out job. We want to start with our physical and emotional well-being so that we can start to attract in this vision that we really want. And when we face challenges, which we know we will, I've got an aging parent right now. Dr. Betty just went through it. It just allows us to navigate some of these things with a little bit more ease than we would otherwise. and just increasing our physical well-being and energy are really going to allow us again to build this life of our dreams. So this again was just my kind of rant on some of the things that I believe are really going to help women get to this next level. And with that said, we will catch you on the next Menrva.